Google Finance is another really great tool that you can use for dividend growth investing. It's obviously free, so there's no harm in using it. So this is basically what the interface looks like. You have the chart here of the market, so you can see how the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ have performed today. You can actually click on, open up in a new tab, and see the actual stock price performance. So there's a lot of information here on the front page. So I just want to do a quick walkthrough. You have big stories about the market here on the side, or kind of in the middle here, about basically a variety of companies. There's talk about Tesla, there's United Airlines. Here you get a summary of how the world markets has performed. So if you own any international stocks, this is a great way to see how Shanghai is doing, how Tokyo is doing, and how Europe is performing as well. And on the bottom here, there's some really great information that I typically like to use as well. They have a lot of good information about the biggest stock gainers in the market for the day, and also the biggest losers. Something I really like to look at sometimes in the morning is just the sector summary here. So these are all the major market sectors that we talked about earlier. And it's a great way to see how one market sector is performing relative to another. As you can see today, energy was down 1.57% today, and it was, and in comparison, technology stocks were up over 2% today. So again, this is another reason why we definitely want diversification in the portfolio. Because if we just own energy stocks, we would be down big today. All right, so one of the features I wanted to go over you guys with Google Finance is actually the stock screener. So Google Finance has one of the better stock screeners out there, and it's completely free. So that just puts, gravy. All right, so as you can see here, we're screening in the US, but you can screen for other countries as well. If you're into international stocks, so you can search in Canada, you can search in Germany, France, all over Europe, and all over Asia as well. So there are basically a lot of criteria you can search from. You can search based on price metrics like 52-week high, 52-week stock price low. You can search on various valuation metrics. You can search based on dividends like the dividend yield, various financial ratios like debt to equity, which we covered. You can search based on various operating metrics, so like return on equity. You can also search by margins as well. So if you want a very high margin business, that's something you might want to input into the criteria here. And also you can search based on growth, based on both sales and income. So let's just do a quick walkthrough and see how we would use this to maybe screen for dividend stocks. So remember, we mentioned before that we only want sizable companies to invest in for our dividend stocks. So for the market cap, I'm going to set the bottom limit at $5 billion. B for the $5 billion. The dividend yield. Remember, we want to be in the Goldilocks zone. So we want 3% to 7%. Let's also add return on equity as well. And this is return on equity over a 5-year average. So let's shoot for at least, let's say, 10% return on equity, just to be conservative. And then let's add in our net margin. So remember, we want businesses that have pretty high margins, but anything above 5% is pretty low. It'll probably be hit pretty hard in a recession. So that's why we want the 5% threshold. And then growth. Remember, earnings growth is ultimately driven by, dividend growth is ultimately driven by earnings growth. So we want a company that is able to increase their earnings. So the percentage increase in earnings over the last 5 years, let's put 7% as the base. All right, so as you can see, we have 5 criteria here, and this kind of limits our universe of thousands and thousands of stocks to now 125 stocks that we can take a closer look at. So that's why stock screeners are so powerful. You can turn your universe much smaller, and then you can start doing research after that. So as you can see here, we can take a look and see all the we can take a look and see all of the stocks that have passed our screening. A few of these are international stocks, but there's definitely some good domestic U.S. stocks here that we can look at. So this is just a really great tool to limit your universe and get those dividend stocks that you really want. And you can play around with all of these criteria too. You can add more criteria to screen for. You can add, say, the dividend payout ratio here. You can add more things like on the margins or revenue growth as well. So it's a really powerful tool because it can combine a lot of these metrics and really screen for what you really want.